You think you know Gulliver's Travels? A giant pin to the ground, children's adventures, cheerful cartoons. But that version is a carefully staged lie. You've been sold the wrapping paper but forgotten the ticking bomb inside. It's a literary weapon forged from political rage and despair. Forget the watered-down versions. Here's the real Gulliver, by Jonathan Swift. Brutal, uncompromising, and deeply unsettling. Underneath the surface of Gulliver's adventures, there's a biting critique. Swift, a master of mockery, dissects society with sharp wit. Each journey takes down human arrogance, questions our nature, and makes us face our own ridiculousness. This masterpiece isn't just a fantasy, it's a chilling warning. Get ready, the real journey starts now. To understand Gulliver's Travels, you first need to understand its creator, Jonathan Swift. Born in Dublin, Dean of St. Patrick's, he was both a churchman and a sharp satirist. Swift criticized English oppression and corruption as a direct witness to Irish misery. His satire, wrapped in absurdity, hid a strong poison under the guise of a fairy tale. Gulliver became his most famous mask, revealing a truth that was too bitter to just say out loud. To really get the wild heart of Gulliver's Travels, we first need to understand the person who wrote it, Jonathan Swift. Born in Dublin in 1667, Swift was a man full of opposites. He was a church leader, but also a writer who liked to stir things up. His anger and frustration came from what he saw happening in Irish politics and all the unfair things in society. Gulliver's Travels came from his anger and his sharp way of looking at people, using humor to make strong points. He was a man who wore many hats, and Gulliver became his most famous and lasting fake name, a way for him to speak truths that were too hard to say directly. Gulliver's first trip takes us to a world that is both real and symbolic. After a shipwreck, he wakes up as a prisoner of the Lilliputians, a tiny but well-organized people. Tied up with tiny threads, Gulliver becomes a giant with no power, turned into just a political pawn. The Lilliputians talk about what to do with him, turning his strength into a weapon for their country. But in this funny world, even a giant can be brought down by the small-mindedness and sneaky plans of the tiniest people. Swift now turns to the political world of Lilliput, showing how silly it is. The kingdom is split into two groups, the Tremexan, who wear high heels, and the Slumexan, who wear low heels. Their only disagreement? The height of their shoe heels. The emperor, a true politician, wears one high heel and one low heel to try and please both sides. This is Swift making fun of the English Tories and Whigs, whose arguments he thought were just as pointless in real life. By making the political fight about shoes, Swift laughs at how petty groups can be. Getting ahead in Lilliput is just as strange. People who want to be in charge have to do rope tricks, and the best jumpers get power. Swift makes fun of the way people at court flatter and do dangerous things, where being good at your job or being honest doesn't matter. Gulliver, who always just watches, describes these customs as if they're totally normal, which makes the joke even funnier. Swift shows a world where politics is driven by fashion and who you know, not by good sense. The Lilliputians are so caught up in their small arguments that they can't see how silly they are. In Swift's eyes, Lilliput is a perfect tiny picture of the English court, where looks are more important than what's real. The future of a country, he suggests, can depend on the most ridiculous little differences. Lilliput's international conflicts are even more absurd than its politics. The empire is in a deadly war with Blefuscu, not over land or honor, but over how to crack a breakfast egg. The Lilliputians insist on cracking their eggs on the small end, the Blefuscudians on the large end. This silly argument has caused rebellions, overthrown emperors, and fueled an endless war. Swift's satire is aimed at Europe's religious conflicts, bringing them down to the level of breakfast rituals. The Lilliputians used the language of holy war, heretics, schisms, crusades, for an egg-cracking story. Swift shows how ideology, when followed blindly, justifies violence for nothing. Gulliver gets pulled into this craziness when the emperor wants him to wipe out Blefuscu. Gulliver's refusal to commit genocide is seen as betrayal. In Lilliput, common sense and kindness are crimes against the state. Swift's message is clear. In a world ruled by absurdity, being moral is dangerous. Gulliver's adventure ends with him running for his life, condemned for his clear thinking. Holy war, Swift suggests, is a terrible waste for absolutely nothing. The satire is sharper than ever, deadly serious and deadly funny. Swift turns the tables in the second part of Gulliver's travels. Now Gulliver is tiny in Brobdingnag, a land of giants. The world suddenly becomes dangerous. Grass turns into a forest, wasps are monsters, and a bowl of cream could drown him. Gulliver, once a giant, is now just a helpless oddity, put on display for fun. He's treated like a pet, a grildrig, a puppet, not a person. Swift uses this switch to criticize human vanity and arrogance. The giant's physical details are made much bigger. Pores, hair, flaws, and smells become overwhelming. Gulliver's knowledge and culture mean nothing. He's a toy in a dollhouse. His attempts to keep his dignity are met with gentle teasing. Swift forces us to see ourselves stripped of our pride and made to feel unimportant. In Lilliput, Gulliver's size gave him power. Here it makes him looked down upon. The humiliation is complete. He's no longer the mountain man, but a fragile toy. Swift's satire is tough and shows how empty pride is. Gulliver's new view is humbling and deeply upsetting. The world of Brobdingnag is a mirror that shows us our own arrogance. Pride, Swift says, is always just a change in perspective away from being humbled. At the court of Brobdingnag, Gulliver tries to impress the king with stories of England's greatness. He brags about their politics, laws, history, and military might, sure that his home country is the best. The king listens, but he's shocked by what he hears. From a giant's point of view, European civilization is a mess of bad behavior, fighting, and silly ideas. Lawyers are seen as people paid to twist the truth, politicians as schemers and flatterers. Gulliver's pride starts to fall apart as the king questions everything he says. The turning point comes when Gulliver offers to teach the king about gunpowder and cannons. The king pulls back in horror, saying no to such devilish inventions. He calls Gulliver's people the most evil race of hateful little bugs on earth. Swift gives his harshest judgment. It's not Gulliver who is small, but the moral standing of his whole civilization. The king of Brobdingnag becomes Swift's voice of reason, showing the truth about European ideas. Gulliver's pride is broken, his civilization shown for what it really is. Swift's satire is complete, a harsh mirror held up to society. Gulliver's third trip takes him to Laputa, a flying island ruled by smart people. The Laputians are obsessed with big ideas, court paws. Like math, music, and stars. Their minds are in the clouds, but their lives are a total mess. They need servants to remind them to talk or listen. That's how much they get lost in their thoughts. Their houses are crooked. Their clothes don't fit right. They don't like practical skills. Swift makes fun of how proud the smart people are, chasing knowledge just for the sake of it. The Laputians' food is cut into geometric shapes and their language is hard to understand. Here, science is separate from real life and smarts are separate from wisdom. The flying island itself is like a symbol, a society that's literally disconnected. The king rules the land below with cold, theoretical power, blocking sun and rain or crushing cities. Swift warns that being smart without caring about others leads to being a tyrant. The Laputians are not just silly. They are dangerous. Swift's satire hits hard. Knowledge without kindness is a dead end. Gulliver visits the Grand Academy of Legado, where projectors are doing crazy experiments, trying to get sunbeams from cucumbers, turning ice into gunpowder, or building a house from the roof down. He's shown a machine that supposedly makes books by chance, replacing human creativity with mechanics. Meanwhile, the country is falling apart because science that's not connected to common sense leads to ruin. Gulliver's last trip takes him to a faraway island, where he meets the Houyhnhnms, horses that are smart and good. Their society, which is built on good sense and truth, has no lies, no evil, and no desire for power. Gulliver is amazed, learns their language, and tries to explain people. But the Houyhnhnms are confused by our bad habits. In this perfect place, Gulliver finds peace and dreams of being as perfect as them, judging humans by how much sense they make. The Yahoos are disgusting, wild, and animal-like creatures, driven by greed, lust, and violence. They fight over shiny stones, hoard food, and do gross things. Underneath the dirt, they look like humans. Gulliver realizes they are a rough reflection of humanity, stripped of all civilization. Swift holds up a dark mirror to our species, showing that civilization is just a thin layer over our wild nature. The mirror is shown, and the reflection is a monster. When Gulliver sees the Yahoos, he doesn't just see gross animals. He sees himself. He sees all of humanity. He sees our greed, our anger, our nastiness, and our stupidity. He sees how we try to act civilized, but deep down, we're just like those Yahoos. This makes Gulliver feel terrible. He's so ashamed of being human that he wants to stay with the Houyhnhnms forever. He tries to act like them, to be as smart and good as they are. But he can't. He's still a human, and he's stuck with all the bad things that come with it. The Houyhnhnms, in their wisdom, decide that Gulliver can't stay. Even though he's different from the Yahoos, he's still too much like them. He's a human, and that means he's flawed. So Gulliver is sent back to his own world, but he's not the same. He can't stand being around other humans anymore. He sees them all as Yahoos, and he'd rather spend his time with horses. We don't come back from our travels with wonders, but with the weight of Swift's judgment. His work isn't a heartwarming story, but a scary mirror that shows our human weaknesses. Swift takes apart our ego by showing our petty politics, our crazy ideas, and the animal under our civilized outside. Gulliver's Travels lives on as a harsh satire that is still important today. Swift doesn't give answers, just an honest mirror. It's up to us to decide who we want to be.